if you have your Bible, if you'll open to the book of Romans, that's been our launching point every week, is Romans chapter 12, where the gifts are mentioned here. And we want to talk today about the gift of administration, or the gift of leading. And then next week, I guess, we'll talk about the gift of mercy, and then that'll wrap up all of the spiritual gifts. So we've gone through all the different gifts: prophecy, service, teaching, exhortation, giving. And then this morning we want to talk about the gift of leading, also called the gift of administration or the gift of ruling. And turn with me, if you will, to Romans chapter 12, and we want to just look at this verse here. In Romans chapter 12, verse number 8, it says, "He that exhorts, wait on exhortation. He that gives, let him do it with simplicity. He that ruleth, with diligence." So here he calls the gift of ruling, and he says that you should do it with diligence. And then he gives these clarification verses that we've talked about. And the clarification verse for the gift of leading or ruling or administration is verse 14. And if you'll look there, I find it so interesting every time I read it. "Bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not." I find it so interesting that the clarifying gift to the person who has the gift, clarifying verse to the person who has the gift of administration or leading or ruling is this warning about, hey, don't curse those who rise up against you, but just bless them and don't curse them and those people who persecute you. And that is so true as a warning for those who are going to lead. Hey, it's going to come. People are going to rise up against you. They're going to persecute you for your stance as a leader. So, the gift of leading enables one to organize, to put things together for the accomplishment of goals and objectives. They are solution finders, and they are able to direct others to a common goal. Here's how he defines this. Tom Rush would define the gift of leading as this right here. He said, "It is the special God-given ability to recognize the gifts of others, enlist and engage them in ministry. Those who possess this gift have the ability to organize and manage people, resources, and time for effective ministry. They have an ability to coordinate details and execute the plans of leadership." Now, I don't know about you, but I have been observing Amy and Tiffany as they're planning for this women's conference. And man, if they don't have the gift of leadership and administration, I don't know who does. I'm talking, Amy's got this little, notepad or whatever. I mean, her notes are just as clear and neat. She knows who to call. She knows who's going here. She knows what time we're doing. I mean, she has just got it together. And she's not doing it all on her own. She's got Mia going and asking this, and this one picking up this, and this one asking that. And that is just a beautiful picture of somebody with a gift of administration who has put everybody in place and is carrying forth a plan. And the word in the Bible that they use to describe the word administration and leadership is this word, a nautical term, the helmsman, the person who steers the ship. And that's the picture that I want you to get as you think about a person with the gift of leadership or administration, that person who's guiding the ship to the place where they need to be. So, I'm happy that we're seeing people using this gift, and we want to look at a couple things that Romans chapter 12 gives as responsibilities to those with the gift of leadership. First of all, look back at verse number 8. Notice that he says, "He that rules, do it with diligence." You know what the word diligent means? It means haste and earnestness and effort. See, to lead people is not an easy thing. It takes work. And Paul says to those of you that have this gift of leadership and ruling, do it with diligence. Put the effort forth towards it. Do it with haste and earnestness. And then we talked about those other two things that he said in verse number 14. Hey, learn to bless those people who persecute you. Here's the truth about life. People will always be there to persecute you. But you've got to learn not to let them change you, but you've got to learn to be able to just bless them even as they're cursing you. And you must not curse those people who refuse to follow you. And that is good advice for people with this gift of leadership. Now, we want to look at the basic characteristics of the gift of leading. And there are 11 of them. Okay? 11 characteristics of the person with the gift of leading. And so we'll run through those rather quickly. First of all, if you'll turn with me in your Bible to the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah is the character that we want to look at who exhibits the most characteristics of a leader. So turn to the book of Nehemiah. And you ought to be familiar with Nehemiah because Blake preached through the book of Nehemiah, and you remember he was building the wall, right? And he shows many, many characteristics of a person with the gift of leadership because he was the one who oversaw the building of the wall. And the first thing we want to look at is this. They have an ability to see the big picture. People with the gift of leadership have an ability to see the big picture. I want you to look at Nehemiah chapter 1, and let's look at verses 2 and 3. We know this story. We're familiar with it. He says in chapter 1, verse number 2, he said, "Then Hananiah, one of my brethren, he came." So they came and they found Nehemiah. "And I asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left of the captivity." Verse number 3, "They said unto me, The remnant that are left of the captivity there in the province are in great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire." Nehemiah saw a huge task in front of him. He said the walls of the city are broken down, and the first thing that indicates to us that he has the gift of leadership is he saw the big picture. And if you turn over to chapter 2, verse number 5, he said he wanted to build the city walls again. That's seeing the big picture. And that's characteristic of someone with a gift of leadership. They can visualize the final result and make long-range plans, and that's exactly what he did. Second characteristic, they have an ability to set goals. They have an ability to set goals. See, Nehemiah had to break down the long-range plan into achievable tasks. And in Nehemiah chapter 3, I'm obviously not going to read the whole chapter, but you know what he started doing in Nehemiah chapter 3? He said, y'all build this section, and y'all build this section, and y'all build this section, and y'all work on this section, y'all do this gate, I'll get this gate, and they'll get that gate. A person with the gift of leadership has an ability to break down a huge task into a smaller set of manageable goals, and we see that from Nehemiah. The third characteristic is they have an ability to determine the necessary resources and the knowledge to acquire them. See, Nehemiah didn't get easily sidetracked. If you start reading in the book of Nehemiah, you're going to see that as soon as he saw there was a problem, these walls were broken down, he immediately starts figuring out what they needed to accomplish this task. So they can find the resources and they have the knowledge to acquire them. He was not easily sidetracked. And also in Nehemiah chapter 3, and you can go back later and look at it if you want to, Nehemiah starts writing letters. See, you'll remember, if you remember Blake teaching it, he started writing letters and he started asking for permission. He said, hey, we need this go-ahead to do this, and we need that go-ahead to do that. So he knew where he had to turn to get the resources and get things done. The fourth characteristic, they will be very thorough and complete. They will stay while the task is completed. Stay with the task until it is completed. So Nehemiah, he is the type of person who said, we got a job in front of us. It's a big job, but we are going to stay on this wall until it is completed. And turn with me to Nehemiah chapter 6. And I told you this, I don't know if it's the sickness or the medicine, but I feel like I'm in a fog, so just bear with me as I'm going. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse number 15. How long did it take them to finish the wall? So the wall was finished in the 25th day in 52 days. Tell me that's not a gift of someone who could see a massive undertaking, but who could start and see where they needed to break down into manageable goals, what resources they need, and who would stick with it. Now, on one hand, we say 52 days doesn't really seem like a lot of time, and for the task at hand, it's not, but sometimes, I'm just going to be honest, we have a tendency to start things, and 2 weeks into them, we're over them. And so from the other's perspective, we can say 52 days was a long time that he said, hey, we're going to get this job done. So he stuck through with the task. That's the fourth characteristic. The fifth, they have a good grasp on the need for faith. They know how to find the will of God and how to trust God in the work of ministry. You know what's usually true of people who have this gift of administration? They're people who know the value of prayer. Because when you're leading people, there's a warning given to you in Scripture that you better be careful when you're leading other people, because you don't want to lead people astray. And Nehemiah was true that he was a man who sought God's will. And you find Nehemiah praying frequently and asking God, God, are you still with us? Are we still on track to complete this? These enemies who come against us, are you aware that they're here? So people who have this gift, they're also people who know the need for faith, and they know how to find the will of God. Here's the next characteristic, the sixth one. They have an ability to know what tasks can be delegated and to whom they can delegate them. Now, I want us to pause and think for a second. How hard is it to give up control of a task? I don't know if y'all struggle like I do, but oh my word, I'd rather do it myself. Because if I do it myself, I know that I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it done right and it's going to be how I want it to be. But let me tell you something, leaders. It is not a mark of a good leader to try to do everything yourself. You have got to be able to delegate to other people. But here's the thing, that's a tricky thing. You delegate to the wrong people and they let it fall through and then they slow your process. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got to be a touchy thing there. But here's the thing about a person with this gift. They know who they can delegate to and who they can't. And if you look at Nehemiah chapter 4, verse number 13, he says here, he said, set I in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I set people after their families with their swords. And what he's talking about is how he positioned people where he wanted them to be. Leaders must learn to delegate. And here's the truth. He delegated many assignments, but he retained the responsibility for the overall result. People who delegate, listen to this, they want loyalty and confidence from those that they direct. Listen to this. They hesitate to delegate unless the person is reliable. Now, a lot of times on the flip side, when we're not the person with the gift of leadership, we think, well, they won't ask me to do anything. It's like they never asked me to bring anything. They never asked me to do this. Well, the last time we asked you, you forgot. I mean, let's just be honest. The last time you had one job and you were in charge of one thing, you kind of let your deadline slack and you kind of fell through on your part of the on the deal here. So a person with that gift has to learn who to delegate to and who not to. And can I just be honest and don't get your feelings hurt? There's some people that you just don't lend yourself well to being delegated to. Well, you've done that to yourself, okay? I mean, ain't nobody trying to get a project to just fall through. I mean, they're not trying to just sabotage their plan here. But you got to know how to delegate. And then, that's the sixth characteristic. The seventh characteristic, they are able to be decisive. Man, I struggle with this one. I don't know that leadership is probably my strongest gift. Maybe I got a touch of it, I don't know. But I'm hard to make decisions. And that's not good, because a lot of times you waste a lot of time. Because somebody say, all right, where do we want this banner hung? I mean, where do we want it? Oh, I don't know. Y'all, what do y'all think? I mean, should we put it over here or should we? I don't know. Hang on, let's see. Well, maybe it should go back here in the back. I don't know. We're wasting time. I mean, the minutes are just ticking by. And a characteristic of somebody with a gift of leadership is they can say this. Let's put it right here. Let's put it right here. Well, I don't like it. We're just going to go right here. You can be decisive. It's sometimes we say that's a good characteristic. Like if I'm not too picky, anything goes. But if you just won't make a decision, after a while, that becomes more of a hindrance than it does a good thing. So a person with this gift has to learn to be decisive because they're constantly making decisions. Here's the eighth characteristic. They will endure reaction from friends or foes in order to accomplish their goals. See, Nehemiah took a hard rap a lot of times. He had opposition who came against him. And people said, Nehemiah, don't you think we ought to take a break from the wall building here? Don't you think we ought to come down for a minute? You think we ought to maybe go about it this way? He said, the opposition doesn't matter to me. We got an end goal in mind. And that is true and characteristic of a person who's got a goal. I remember that Blake said that when we tore down the church building over here, I don't even know where I am. Is it that way? That way. He tore down that little building. Well, you know, these curtains have, I feel like, I don't know where I am. Okay, now I can see. I got my orientation that way. And he said that when we were tearing down, not we because I wasn't here, but when they were tearing down the old church, people stopped by just to say, I just can't believe y'all are tearing that little building down.
And
well,
Facebook
statuses that they couldn't believe it was being torn down. Well, go on, because we didn't ask you, okay? But the thing is,
come back and you'll get a say.
I mean, come on. The thing is, once we don't need that, right? But you know what? It's time for change. We're moving on. But the thing is, some people, obviously Blake's not that person, thank God, but some people might say, I don't know, y'all. We're not going to be able to tear down that building without people getting tore up. And that might bother them. But to the person with the gift of leadership, they say, listen, we've got an end goal in mind. And if people are going to get their feelings hurt and they're going to come with these, sideways eyes and poor opinions, so be it. We have a goal to look forward to. And that is a characteristic. What about this one? They dislike disorder and they can't stand a mess.
I must not be.
You must not be. Must not have it. They dislike disorder and they can't stand a mess. Now what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Nehemiah chapter 1. I'm talking about when Nehemiah asked, hey, what's the condition of Jerusalem? And somebody said, the walls are in shambles. Well, for him, that troubled him. It literally says in verse number 4 that when he heard those words, he said, I sat down and I wept and I mourned and I fasted and I prayed. Because he hated the thought that there was a disorder among the city there, that there was a mess. He just wanted to get this vision to fix it and repair it. And that's exactly what he did. That's the 9th characteristic. The 10th, they have a great joy in seeing all parts come together in a finished product. A great joy when all parts come together for a finished product. And a lot of us that do have this gift understand that. Man, there's just something beautiful about seeing a plan that's been in place for months, been underway for months, just seeing it all come together and everything line up so perfectly. Man, you get great joy out of that because you have helped orchestrate that and move people in the right directions and put it all together, and they get great joy from that. And then here is the last characteristic, number 11, and I know we've gone through those very quickly. They need a current challenge, but will normally remain on the sidelines until they're asked to be in charge. See, here's a misunderstanding about the gift. The person that has the gift of leadership is not always the person that says, oh, y'all need somebody to do something. Here, I'm here, let me come out here. I'll straighten this out. I'll organize this. Hey, I'll volunteer. See, a lot of times what people miss is the person that has the gift of leadership, a lot of times will sit back until they are asked to take that role. Now I want you to notice that it was in chapter 1, verse number 2, it said that Hananiah, one of my brethren, he came to me. They came and asked Nehemiah. You notice that, right? Nehemiah didn't go and find out about the wall. They came and they asked Nehemiah to consider overseeing the condition of the walls here. And a lot of times, a person who has this gift, they just wait a minute. They'll lead when others won't lead, and it's not that they're scared to lead. That's just typical of this gift. They wait until they are asked to take charge or to oversee something. So those are the 11 characteristics of a person with the gift of leadership. Now, with the gift comes misunderstandings and misuses. And here are 7 of them. And let's talk about these. The first one. A lot of times the person with the gift of leadership, they will delegate tasks. Not delegate. Delegate. They will delegate tasks. But if they delegate too much of the work, then they appear lazy. Now, how many of y'all have ever been in a situation like that? I most certainly have, because I sit there and I think, now you told me to go here and do that, and she's going to go do that, and she's going to get that, and she's going to take care of that. What are you doing? I mean, you ever thought about that? And that is a misuse of the gift. You need to make sure that you're not giving all the responsibility away and you're just being lazy. I love what Tom Rush calls this. He said, don't create he uses this phrase right here, county road crew view. He said, where you got 5 managers standing around watching one worker. And that's definitely good advice to the person with a gift of leadership or administration or ruling, whatever you want to call it. Don't give all the tasks away where you're just left standing there watching everybody work, because you come across lazy and you're not going to get the right response out of people that way. That's the first misuse. Here's the second one. They may appear calloused due to their determination. See, people get an end goal in mind. I mean, you ever been around somebody who's a really hard worker and maybe they come in and they say, look, man, we are going to get this property cleaned up. We are going to get this carpet laid. We are going to get this house painted. I mean, whatever it is. And they say, pretty much, man, come hell or high water, this is going to be done. And they want it finished and they want it completed. And sometimes people are thinking, my gosh, give us a break here. But the thing is, you don't want to become too calloused. And here's what Tom Rush gives as an advice here. He said, you got to remember to see people as human beings and not human resources. Remember when you're leading people that these are human beings, they're not human resources. Okay? You don't overwork people just to get your task accomplished. So sometimes leaders appear too calloused. Here's the third one. They will be very honest about their likes and dislikes, and may be unresponsive to suggestions and appeals. And remember, this is not a good thing. Okay? It's a truth of the people with this gift, but it's a misuse of this gift. Just because you're the leader doesn't mean that you don't listen to other people's opinions about the task that is before you. And here's the thing. You don't want to become an autocrat who controls every detail of the project. I've been around people like this, and you know what I end up doing? I just get quiet, and after a few minutes, I'm just going to leave. I mean, honestly. I mean, my gosh, if you've got it all figured out, and you're not up for hearing anybody else's opinion, I mean, you're just a sealed vault. Oh, no, I know exactly how I want it done. Well, then you don't really need anybody else in here. And I'm, in my opinion, and I hate to be this way, but I'm almost about, well, you can do it yourself. You know what I mean? So don't allow the position of leadership to make you somebody who is unresponsive to people's opinions or their input. You don't want to become that type of leader. So that's the third one. Fourth, they become impatient with mediocrity and those who tire easily. Those who tire easily. They appear bossy. And they don't have patience for people when they are expressing their frustrations, or people who are tired, or they're kind of over this. Well, this person who wants to finish the task, and the person with the gift of leadership a lot of times doesn't have much patience with people like that. And you got to be careful. And we do see this, and you do see it in projects where towards the end of it, when people are kind of losing the gusto of it, then the leader kind of starts to get angry, like, what the heck, we're losing our gusto here. Come on, we got to get back. And you got to be careful and watch that you're not too impatient with people. Does that make sense? 2 more, or 3. 3 more. Here's the 5th one. They may appear to show favoritism to those who are more loyal. See, leaders, as we talked about, have to delegate responsibilities to people. And a lot of times it can seem like they're showing favoritism to the people who are more loyal, but here's the truth. Leaders want to give responsibility to people that they know will take the responsibility and do well with it. But here's the flip side. As a leader, you have to be careful that you don't always pick the same people to do stuff, and you open up a place for people to serve. Somebody said this week, and I believe there's a lot of the devil in this, but somebody said this week, I don't think that y'all need me there at Youngs Grove. Well, listen, we always need people here. And I know that the devil gets in people's heads about that. Oh, they don't need me here. There's nothing for me to do. But on the flip side, we as leaders, people who have the gift of leadership, you need to make sure that you're always conscious about opening up a place for people to serve so that they do feel needed and they do feel a place. I'll tell you this. I was at a church when I was a kid, and I've been to many churches, so don't think you know where it is. But I went to a church, when I was younger, and as I think back on it as an adult, I think, my goodness, the same people did everything in that church. I think, well, that guy did that, he was that, he was that, he was that. My goodness, I think he was over that too, he was over that, he was over that. You got to be careful about that because you give the idea that you don't need other people to serve when you let one person do everything. You don't open up the place. And if you want to know my honest truth, do you know that I have left a church before because genuinely there wasn't a place for me to serve. There just wasn't. And we as people with the gift of administration and people who have the gift of leadership, open the door for people to serve. It's important that you see people's gifts and say, hey, we have a need for you, and it's right here. Don't always show favoritism just toward the same people that you know are responsible, but open up the door for places for people to serve. That's important. Here's the sixth characteristic. They may fail to give proper explanation and praise to the workers. They don't always give appropriate praise to the workers. I have such a high value of Blake. I really value his opinion and his insight on things. And man, if I'm ever singing a song and Blake says, you did a good job, oh my gosh.
It's the greatest.
It's the greatest. It's like you just want a Dove Award. Is the Dove Award a thing? That's Christian, a Grammy, whatever. I don't know. It just... Man, I feel like I could go sing it on the grand stage then, And Blake's compliments are they're weighted, in my opinion. And I'm going to give an example, and she's not here, or I'd ask her. Sorry, Ashley Guthrie. But, let's just be honest. When she sings that song, whatever it is, what is it? Your Great Name, she's gone weak into that song every time she's just about sung it. She always just real nervous and timid. And Blake came down here that Sunday, the last time she sang it, and he said, you've got this song. You know it. You do great with it. Quit being afraid of it. Just nail it. And I'm telling you, she nailed it. She nailed it. And I think it's Blake's compliment. It really is. And for him to give his nod of approval that, hey, you sound on key, and I'm sorry if this is just, nauseating that we would value Blake's opinion, but I'm serious. Man, when he puts his nod on something, but listen, what most people don't know is that people feel that way about those people who are in leadership. And Tom Rush said, that's a misuse of your gift. If you're a leader and you are not reassuring the people who are working under you, if you're not complimenting them and giving them explanations and encouraging them and praising them, then that's a misuse of your gift. You need to now. And here's what I know about Blake, though. Let me tell you something. He's not going to give a fluff compliment. You're messing up something, he's not going to say you're doing a good job. And here's what I also rest confidently about with Blake. I know that if I'm singing off in the choir, he's going to tell me. And I'm thankful for that. I want him to. So when we're over there, sometimes maybe the alto section singing or whatnot, I'm thinking, well, we got to be pretty close to Ryder. He'd already been over here and he would have already told us. So I know that his words are genuine and they mean something. But to those people who are leaders, sometimes they don't give enough praise to the workers, and that's a misuse. And then here's the last misuse. Sometimes they'll take on projects that are not in God's direction and will. Just because you can lead something doesn't mean that you should. Just because you can organize people and you could get something done doesn't necessarily mean that you should. You always, as a person with this gift, need to be very sensitive to God's direction and God's will. Now, here's the thing. In the Bible, there were many leaders: Samuel and Joseph and Joshua, Moses, James and Paul, Peter, Timothy and John. Many people who showed the gift of leadership. I think Nehemiah showed excellent leadership in getting the task done of rebuilding the walls there. And we want to look, as we always do, at how Jesus exemplified this gift of a leader, and look at John chapter 10. In John chapter 10, just his title alone really says a lot about his gift as a leader. In John chapter 10, verse number 11, Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd." I mean, my goodness. What is a shepherd more than a leader? He is one who leads the sheep. And he says in verse number 11, "I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd gives his life for the sheep." And he goes on and throughout the next few verses and all the way up through verse number 18, and he describes his role as a good shepherd. I'm pretty sure that we are aware that Jesus Christ has the gift of administration and leading as he so faithfully leads the sheep that we are called. We are called sheep. And so Jesus also exemplifies the gift of leadership. I know it's very short and I've finished early, but I want to close with this one quote, and then we'll have time maybe for some conversation. J. Sidlow Baxter made a quote about Nehemiah's leadership, and I found this to be very profound, and I want you to listen to it. He said this, Baxter said, "As we watch this strong, earnest, godly hero Nehemiah, resolutely leading the rebuilding in the first part of the book, then resolutely resisting compromise and laxity and intrigue in the second part of the book, we find the spiritual message of it all coming home to us with great force. Let us heed its voice to us." Listen to this. This is where it gets profound. He said, "There is no winning without working and warring. There is no opportunity without opposition. There is no open door set before us without there being many adversaries to obstruct our entering. Whenever the saints say, 'Let us arise and build,' the enemy says, 'Let us arise and oppose.' There is no triumph without trouble. There is no victory without vigilance. And there is a cross in the way to every crown that is worth wearing." That's profound. And I think that the truth about this gift of leadership really can kind of be summed up in this right here. If you have the gift of leadership, what a wonderful gift. What a wonderful gift to be able to organize people, to get tasks done, to see people's gifts and put them right where they need to be. That's to the people who have the gift. Heed the warnings about misuses and things. To the people who don't have the gift of leadership, I think that you ought to have a lot of respect for people who do. Even just the clarifying verse in Romans chapter 12 when he said, "Don't curse those who persecute you." Because that is the truth. Leaders take a hard rap for the stances that they take. And people aren't trying to be bossy. Maybe not, and they're not trying to just be domineering, hopefully not, but they're really trying to get something accomplished that is for the greater good of us all. And I feel that we should have utmost respect for those people who have the gift of leadership, administration, ruling, whatever it is that you want to call it. I know that that's a little short and a little different. I'm a little off my game, but that's the gift of administration.